Have you ever looked at someone and found yourself thinking, almost involuntarily, how it is even possible that they managed to change so quickly, as if something inside them suddenly flipped overnight and turned them into a completely different person? One day they seem insecure, lost, almost invisible to the world around them, and then, without warning, they begin to walk into rooms with a presence so strong that it feels like they own the space, as if they've always been that way. Their energy feels different in a way that's hard to explain. Their posture communicates something new without a single word being spoken. And even their decisions seem sharper, faster, and more precise than before. And in that moment, you are left wondering whether it was luck, whether it was some kind of performance or illusion, or if there's actually something they understand about transformation that you still haven't discovered. Because if we're being completely honest, deep down most people believe that real change is something that takes time, something slow and gradual that unfolds over months or years, not something that happens overnight. But what if that belief itself is the very thing holding you back? And what if the idea that change must be slow is nothing more than a narrative you've been conditioned to accept without questioning? The uncomfortable truth that most people avoid confronting is that people do not actually change overnight in the way it appears from the outside. However, the moment they truly decide to change, in a deep and irreversible way, everything inside them begins to shift immediately, even if no one else can see it yet. And that invisible internal shift is the part no one talks about, because it cannot be captured in a before and after image or explained in a simple sentence. From the outside, the transformation looks sudden and almost magical, as if it happened instantly without warning. But on the inside, it has been building quietly over time, sometimes for months and sometimes for years, beneath the surface where no one else is looking. It is built from silent frustration, from hidden emotional pain, and from layers of accumulated disappointment that never fully disappeared. Every ignored opportunity, every rejection, and every moment where they felt like they were not enough continues to stack up silently, without making noise. And all of that pressure builds gradually until one specific moment arrives. A moment that becomes impossible to ignore and impossible to escape. When that moment finally breaks the pattern, it does not break gently or slowly, but with intensity and force that changes everything at once. If you think about your own life, you might remember a moment where you said, "Enough," not in a casual or emotional way, but in a deep and decisive way that came from somewhere much stronger. It is the kind of enough that does not ask for permission, that does not wait for approval, and that does not negotiate with fear or uncertainty. That exact moment is where real transformation begins, even if nothing external has changed yet. But here is something even more important to understand, and it is something that most people never realize. Most people never reach that point of absolute clarity and decision, and instead they remain trapped in a cycle of almost changing without ever fully committing. They become almost disciplined, almost confident, and almost successful, but never truly reach the level they desire. This happens because they are addicted to comfort, even when that comfort is disguised as progress and self-improvement. They watch videos, they read books, and they spend time planning their future in great detail, convincing themselves that they are moving forward. But when it comes to actually taking action, they hesitate, and that hesitation becomes the silent killer of transformation. The people who appear to change overnight are the ones who stop hesitating entirely and cut off the delay that used to control their decisions. They stop negotiating with their old self, and they stop making excuses that allow them to remain the same. And that process is terrifying because it requires letting go of the identity you have been holding on to for so long. So let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable if you answer honestly. Who are you when no one is watching, when there is no audience, no expectations, and no external pressure shaping your behavior? Because that version of you, the one that exists in private, is the version that is truly controlling your life. It is not the version you show online, and it is not the version you wish you could become someday. It is the real version, the one that makes excuses when things get difficult, that avoids discomfort whenever possible, and that keeps saying tomorrow instead of taking action today. The people who change overnight are the ones who confront that version of themselves directly, without filters, without lies, and without trying to soften the truth. They see themselves clearly, sometimes for the first time, and they do not like what they see. Instead of running away from that discomfort, they choose to use it as fuel for change. That is the real shift that separates them from everyone else, and it has nothing to do with motivation or temporary inspiration. It is about clarity, a brutal and undeniable clarity that cannot be ignored once it appears, because once you see the truth about yourself, you cannot go back to not knowing it. And that awareness creates pressure, a kind of internal pressure that demands action and demands evolution. It creates a need to become something more, something stronger, something aligned with what you are capable of being. Now this is where many people misunderstand the process, because they believe that change is about adding something new to their life. They think about new habits, new routines, and new goals as the solution to their problems. But real transformation is not about adding, it is about removing the things that have been holding you back all along. It is about removing distractions, toxic patterns, limiting beliefs, and the identity that no longer serves your growth. Because it is impossible to become a new person while still holding on to the old version of yourself. Trying to do that is like trying to move forward while dragging a heavy weight behind you, slowing you down at every step. Eventually something has to give, and for those who truly change, they choose to let go completely. They stop trying to be the same person with slightly better results, and instead commit to becoming someone entirely different. They adopt different standards, a different mindset, and a different kind of energy that reflects who they are becoming. And yes, that process feels uncomfortable, sometimes even overwhelming. Discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong, but a sign that transformation is happening. Now consider this question carefully, because the answer reveals more than you might expect. Why do some people wait years to change, while others seem to do it instantly? The answer comes down to one powerful factor, and that factor is pain. Not physical pain, but psychological pain that builds over time and becomes impossible to ignore. When the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of changing, action is no longer optional. At that point, it becomes inevitable, something that must happen, rather than something that might happen. That is why some people wake up one day and completely shift the direction of their life. Because they have reached their limit, and once that limit is broken, there is no going back to the way things were before. Now here is something even more powerful, and in many ways, more dangerous. Once someone experiences that level of transformation, they realize that they were always capable of it. They understand that the only thing that was missing was the willingness to act. And that realization changes everything, because it removes every excuse they once believed in. There is no longer a place for "I can't" or "maybe later" in their mindset. Instead, the question becomes, why didn't I do this sooner? And that question carries a heavy emotional weight. It forces them to confront lost time, missed opportunities, and versions of their life that could have existed, but never did. That realization can either break a person emotionally, or push them even further toward growth. The people who truly change choose to use it as momentum rather than allowing it to hold them back. They do not dwell on the past, but instead use it as a tool to accelerate their future. They transform regret into action, and that shift creates rapid progress in their life. Their decisions become faster, their confidence becomes natural, and opportunities seem to appear everywhere around them. This does not happen because the world suddenly changed in their favor. And, when you change internally, the way you see the world changes as well. You begin to notice opportunities that others overlook, take risks that others avoid, and move forward while others remain stuck in hesitation. That creates a visible gap between you and everyone else, a gap that continues to grow over time. And eventually, people begin to notice and say things like, "You've changed so much," without truly understanding what happened. They only see the result, but they do not see the process that led to it. They do not see the nights where you questioned everything, the moments where you felt like quitting, or the internal battles that no one else could hear. Because transformation is often a lonely process, especially in the beginning when everything is still uncertain. You begin to outgrow people, habits, and environments that once felt normal to you. And that creates distance, a kind of separation that can feel uncomfortable but is necessary for growth. Because it is impossible to grow in the same environment that kept you small. Now let's be completely honest for a moment and confront something that most people avoid asking themselves. Do you actually want to change, or do you simply like the idea of change because it feels good to imagine a better version of yourself? Those are two completely different things, even if they seem similar on the surface. Liking the idea of change is easy, comfortable, and safe because it requires nothing from you, but real change demands sacrifice, including your time, your energy, your comfort, and sometimes even your relationships. And most people are not ready to make those sacrifices, which is why they remain exactly where they are. They repeat the same patterns year after year, hoping for different results without changing their behavior. But hope alone does not create change, no matter how strong it feels in the moment. Only action creates change, especially when that action is consistent, intentional, and uncomfortable. That is what separates those who transform their lives from those who stay stuck in the same cycle. So if you're listening to this and thinking that you want that kind of transformation, it all begins with a decision, not a vague intention for the future, but a clear and immediate commitment. Not tomorrow, not next week, but right now in this moment. Because every second you wait reinforces your current identity and makes it stronger. And the longer you remain the same, the harder it becomes to break out of that pattern. But the moment you decide, everything begins to shift internally, even if nothing has changed externally yet. Your focus becomes sharper, your priorities become clearer, and your energy starts to align with your goals. Suddenly, you are no longer the same person you were before. Not because time has passed, but because you made a different choice. You chose growth over comfort, and that choice is where everything truly begins. So the next time you see someone who appears to have changed overnight, do not assume that it was easy or that it happened by chance. Understand that behind that transformation, there was a breaking point, a powerful decision, and the courage to act despite fear. And now the only question that remains is one that only you can answer.